It's funny that I'm so used to 100 Girlfriend's fast pace of acquiring girlfriends, especially early on in the series, that I was so sure we'd be blowing through chapters getting all the other Karens one after another. So when reading this chapter and not getting another at the end teased, I was kind of baffled. This series is going to take its time with the story and developing each Karen, and I can respect that. But I'd be lying if I said I wasn't getting a little impatient to meet all the Karens and then see all the hijinks that you and the 7 Karens get up to. This is what happens when you're raised on 100 Girlfriends, that 7 in another series becomes, well, nothing. Anyway, now that I've spoiled the ending of the chapter, let's get on to the actual overview. And if you're upset with me for spoiling the ending, well, you should have read the chapter before watching the video. My videos should never be replacements for actually reading the chapters themselves when they come out. This applies to both this series and 100 Girlfriends. And it's why I purposefully leave stuff out of my videos. I never intend for these to be replacements for actually reading the chapters. I make these to invoke discussions on them and make some dumb jokes along the way. Anyway, I'm Moonlight150, and this is my overview of the latest chapter of I Can't Choose a Childhood Friend, Chapter 4. Of course, this is what I am. Be sure to check out the full chapter in the link provided below to support those who are bringing us these translations. The chapter opens up with another flashback to the childhood versions of Yu and Karen pre-split during the summer they spent together, where they discuss Yu's anxiety regarding the other students in his class avoiding him, where Karen gives Yu some advice about not really worrying about it because something like that just can't be helped. So one can't be bothered according to her, showing what I've thought for a while now, that the Himeka version of Karen is probably the closest to what a non-split up version of Karen would be like. Now, it's very possible we get another flashback next chapter, where young Karen exhibits more qualities of Galka. But as for now, based on this flashback and the fact young Karen and Himeka are the closest design-wise, it's what I'm going to roll with for now until proven otherwise. Back to present day, and this new form of Karen is introducing herself to the class like how we left off in the previous chapter. This Karen, whom I have dubbed Shaika until the story decides to name her, because, another spoiler, we don't get her nickname in this chapter. But this Karen is much different than the previous two, a lot less happy girly girl, and is now a shy and quiet girl, sporting longer hair and twin ponytails, glasses, and a headband that gives her little animal ears. Are they supposed to be bear ears?
You're Miss Yuna. You're 15 years old, and your job class says, bear.
Also, we get some confirmation that everything so far in this manga within these 4 chapters has happened over the course of 2 days. Yeah, actual time management in a manga. Hey, Nakamura, take some notes. The teacher has Shaika take her seat in the back, where we get our first glimpse of Shaika's depressive personality. The woe is me attitude of saying she'd just get in the way if she sat anywhere near the front. But in reality, it's because it's the only seat available. Yu wastes no time and introduces himself to the new Karen, which suddenly being reunited with your old childhood summer crush out of the blue, while also getting over the anxiety of starting at a new school and thinking you're being punished to the back of the classroom, is too much for Shaika to process, and she runs out of the room. The other 2 Karens decide to confront her instead and, well, decide to drop the bomb that you're actually a fragment of a person and we're the other fragments of the same person on her in the middle of the school hallway. Obviously, this doesn't work and she goes into full panic mode. But I guess they decided to just leave her there in a panicked state because the chapter cuts to Yu and the 2 Karens back in the classroom. The group decides it's probably for the best that Yu tries to explain the gist of everything to her, but uh-oh. Shaika overhears some random girls mention that Yu isn't really close to the Karens. Which I guess makes sense, it's only been 2 days and they have spent a lot of time together figuring everything out. It makes sense that gossip is starting to spread, which hearing this puts her back into a depressive state. Yu confronts Shaika back out in the hallway to talk to her, but she tries to dart away again. Knowing that she's new, she doesn't know her way around the school, Yu offers to show her the way to her next class. On the way, Yu takes note of just how different this Karen is to the others, but realizes no matter how different a Karen may be, he loves her all the same. But seeing him having a love throb makes her offer all the money in repentance. Yu mentions out loud how different this Karen is to how she was 10 years ago, which that turns out to be Shaika's trigger words, and she goes back into a depressive slump, saying how Yu must be disappointed how she turned out since back then, where we reveal this side of her developed from a lack of trusting in people, and she storms off upset from being considered a disappointment, and Yu didn't even give a chase. Nice going, man. We then see Yu back with the other 2 Karens pondering what to do about Shaika, where Himeka continues to not being able to be bothered and suggests giving up on her. But because this is a Machihashi Karen, Yu refuses to. because he has already figured out that if he gives up on a Karen, that Karen will disappear, which Yu brings out the charm to confirm, and he turns out to be right. Much like what happened earlier at the beginning of all this, any Karen that Yu doesn't exchange mutual feelings with will disappear. Also, I like that this charm god, or whatever he is, seems like he'll be a reoccurring player in the series, unlike another deity of love that we know of that rarely ever shows up. Yu reaffirms that no matter what kind of person a Karen Machihashi becomes, he still loves them, and that he wants to help because he can tell that she was hurting, and all that he ever wants to do is support and help any and all Karens. Yu then apologizes to the two Karens that he is sacrificing time to be with them to chase after another Karen, especially since they just barely started dating and putting into motion that schedule he worked so hard on, which I guess needs to be thrown out the window since there is now another Karen now to work into the schedule. The Karens are accepting of what Yu needs to do because, well, it's another version of them, so they understand and support what he needs to go do. He thanks the both of them, and they end on this lovely hug shot, which then leads to probably the funniest panel in the series so far, of one of the Karens saying that this would be a totally different story if it was about a different girl. And I honestly cannot tell if this is Himika or Galka because it's so zoomed in. It seems like something Himika would say over how Galka is more about good vibes, but I kind of like that it's ambiguous. The charm then reminds him that he has until the end of school tomorrow, so the gang sets off to find Shaika, only to have her dart off again from the school grounds. The girls give Yu a vote of confidence in this hilarious looking shot of them, and he's off. And it seems like Yu never caught up to her because the chapter cuts to then Shaika arriving at home, and she heads straight to her room, where I'm sure the mom to triplets was happy to see her. Shaika ponders over thoughts of Yu while having a conversation with her stuffed bear, mentioning how he's cheerier and talkative and popular with girls now. Girl, you should have seen him like 3 chapters ago. She then recalls what he said about how she's changed, and she throws a fit over the reality of it, thinking how Yu must be disappointed in how she turned out compared to the old her, and not the pity party that she is now. We then get a flashback to the past of this particular version of Karen, showing that after leaving Yu, she was her usual outgoing, bright, playful self with friends, but then gets betrayed when she overhears how the friends she was playing with earlier didn't want to invite her to go to the library due to her extroverted self most likely wanting to play outside again, when they would rather do things like read books and draw. This sends Karen down spiraling as she learns how two-faced people can really be, the ones that she considered friends. And then she became weary of everyone, not trusting anyone at face value through the next section of her life, until she became what she is today. And somehow being a pity-party nervous wreck unable to trust anyone led to poor eyesight because this is the only Karen with glasses, at least from the ones that we can see the faces of. Shaika then continues her pity party saying that she should probably keep her distance from Yu, but admits to herself that she does want to continue being his friend. To where, surprise, Himika accidentally opens the door to Shaika's room, and the two exchange a glance of shock before the chapter ends, leaving us on another cliffhanger. Okay, there's a lot to unpack here, mainly in the sense of trying to understand how the splitting of Karens work, how and when they show up, and the fact that it seems like they'll have different versions of their pasts, which is something we didn't get from either Himika or Galka. Here's hoping the author decides to dive a bit more into this in the next chapter as they integrate Shaika into the group. Now, a lot of what I'm going to say probably does reach into the overthinking category, but hey, that's what I do best. The fact that Himika and Galka don't interact or know of the other Karen's existence in the morning, while they are at home or before going to school, shows that the change to the world occurs once school starts. Or maybe even more specifically, when the teacher brings them into the class. And like the charm said in the last chapter, the world changes around them to accept another Karen, and only the Karens and Yu are aware of the change. This explains the ending where Himika was most likely opening the door to what she thought was something other than Shaika's room, that being maybe a closet or bathroom or something. To see her surprised that, oh yeah, we have another Karen and she must have a room here somewhere in this house, as evident by the text here that both Himika and Galka kind of forgot that instead of tracking her down, that she would eventually just go home to the home that they were already going to. But what I really want to talk about is Shaika's past. The fact we got a flashback after Karen left Yu that summer, and showed the events that led to her drastic change in personality. And I really hope they dive into this a bit where they have the other Karens compare notes on their own pasts. Do all the Karens have the same pasts, or do they all have different ones? This leads to 2 possible outcomes. One example, all the Karens have similar but key different moments in their pasts. Maybe in the past for Himika and Galka, they never overheard their friends talk behind her back, which caused Shaika to spiral into depression. Or 2, what I think most likely will be the answer if we ever get one, is that they all have the same past, but how they responded to those events will be different based on their primary personality traits. Shaika heard those kids talk behind her back, and that sent her into a depression, whereas someone like Himika couldn't be bothered to care and got new friends or didn't care that they thought that way, and Galka probably just rolled with it to keep the good vibes going. This way, their paths are all the same, it's just that the different sides of Karen all responded differently, and they changed accordingly. This is going to be interesting, especially as we introduce other Karens like Sportka and Sunka, and see what caused them to evolve from the young Karen that you hung out with, because so far, those have all been consistent between all the Karens. It's only after they spent the summer with you that things happened that changed each Karen. Which makes sense, it was 10 years after all. Most people change in that amount of time. And that's all my thoughts. This is feeling like a good precursor to what feels like will be a hefty Chapter 5, as I feel like we'll be getting a lot of explaining on how things like the Karens magically showing up on different days, and conflicting backstories will be explained in the next chapter. Or do they just do the usual manga thing and never explain a damn thing? That could happen too. And I do think by the end of the next chapter we will get the tease of another Karen, since the Shaika introduction arc will be wrapped up. So I want you to write in the comments which Karen we will get next. I feel like Sportka or Sunka will be next since they are shown off so much more predominantly in the art over Shaika. It feels like it will be a while before we get anything on the two back-facing Karens, whom I will call Boka because of the bow in her hair, and Nunka because I got nothing on this girl. And going at the pace we're going of each Karen getting a 2-chapter introduction arc, we won't be seeing these versions of Karen until like middle of next year. Man, these monthly releases really kill the vibe of being excited and looking forward to something. Anyway, hope you all enjoyed. I'm really digging talking about this ongoing series like this, and getting to speculate on it, especially right at the beginning as the series launched. I'm really curious what the meat of this series will be once we have all the Karens. But we won't have any clue of that until probably this time next year, when we finally assembled all the Karens. Do they lean into the episodic adventures like 100 Girlfriends, except now it's Yu and his 7 girlfriends who really like him? Or will there be some other kind of plot they have to tackle? Sadly, it's gonna be like a year before we get any of that. But I intend to see that with you all with these reviews in the meantime. I've been Moonlight150, and be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to acquire all the Karens with me. See you all on the next video.